my name is Gideon and I'm the host of the Sanche Heart YouTube channel. Welcome back if you're a returning subscriber, welcome to the channel if you're a new viewer. If you like my content, please leave a like and subscribe, and if not, leave a comment. I always love hearing feedback and criticism on how I can make the channel better or the content more watchable, I guess. And what I'm making today is a camera review. Today I have with me the EOS Canon 7D Mark II, which is an insane camera to start with. The camera comes with an 18 to 135mm lens that has an autofocus mode and a manual focus switch right on it. It's got a stabilizer on it and also a locking switch, just if you need to lock in a prime lens for photos for a certain assignment or if you want to get a certain look. The weight of this camera is 2 pounds and it really feels like that. It feels like you're holding a good piece of equipment that's ready to take photos. This is a 20.2 megapixel sensor in it and it definitely shows. The video rate is 1080p 60 FPS, so just as good as it is at photos, it's amazing at video. It's got a 65-point autofocus system, and with this camera, it offers such customizability. You can choose each individual point that you want. I noticed as a photographer that gives you complete creative control over how you want your photos set up, which I really appreciate because I feel like most cameras don't offer that type of insight into what you want to focus on, how you want to focus on it. Speaking more on the autofocus system, this has 5 pages of customizable options. The first page is a preset of options that you could try because this camera comes with an autofocus sensitivity meter that you can adjust as the photographer. I haven't had a big chance to mess around with it, but from what I was reading of the preset modes, they have some options where that would be best suited for nature photography because the description read as it was ready for jerky motions, like if a deer was ready to run off, or faster acceleration. So if you were doing cinematography work on cars and it started to take off, your camera would be able to keep up with that. There's also phase tracking and locking on that on the final page of the autofocus menu. And I think that'd be great for basketball, sports, if a guy's going in for a layup and you really need to get a picture of him, and for some reason your camera just bugs out because there's so much motion, and it takes a picture of the other player, then you've lost that photo. But with this camera, you don't really have to worry about that because of that. And I find that extremely attractive as a selling point for what I'm looking for when looking for cameras. It's got a shutter speed that caps out at 1/8000th of a second. Like I was saying before, this is a camera meant for high intensity, high motion, and just stopping them. Just freeze framing them right there. And I really find that feature that could be just limitless in creativity. You could get some great standstills, great freeze frames of like what could be highly intense situations. People's faces when they're going through emotions, or when a boxer punches someone, you get those ripples right there because you have that 1/8000th of a second. And so that is also complemented by a continuous drive that shoots 10 FPS. So every 1 second, this camera can be programmed to take 10 photos, getting those high bursts, making sure you're not missing a single movement of your subject. This camera has a built-in GPS, so if you've ever been online trying to tag in certain locations, like as an Instagram post, if you're building your online portfolio and you want to just tag the photo, you can put coordinates of certain photos. And the only time I see this not working out in your favor is you're doing something a little sketchy, but with this I feel like it's really helpful to a lot of photographers who want to pin a location, and if those people want to go see where they took these photos, they can go enjoy them. The ISO caps out about 16,000, which for those who aren't super involved in the fundamentals of photography, that's basically like shooting in a dark room. You can also use that for astrophotography. 10 FPS continuous drive allows a photographer to take multiple photos a second at different exposures that you can also program in. So let's say the 10 FPS is just the max, and you want to take a photo at 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 1 minute again. You can do that with this camera, which is useful in events like marathons or astrophotography where you want to layer them on top and get that star streak pattern. The plugins for this camera are pretty interesting. They come with a mic headphone jack, a PC terminal, a remote control plugin, a cable protector, an HDMI mini port, and a USB 3.0, which is the main export, and it's incredibly fast. I took several videos with this camera and they just downloaded it on my computer almost instantaneously, which I really thought made my work way easier rather than me having to wait around for my photos to download on my laptop. A few things about this camera is the dual switches are kind of weird on the menu selecting options. One moves laterally, the other moves horizontally, And then they have this little joystick that you can use to move both, but it's not really my favorite thing as it feels a little small and close into the camera. Like you really have to get your nail underneath it and move it around. It's not my favorite thing, but it's you can look past for this quality of camera. Another thing I really like is that the pathfinder is customizable. You can put a 3x3 grid for the rule of thirds into it, or you can put an 8x8 grid. And they also had diagonal ones. I didn't look all the way into it, but I thought that was just interesting that you could customize this to the point that you liked it. The switch between video and photography is seamless. With just a slight rotation of a little notch, it's done. The recording button isn't up next to the shooting button, which I find really nice and interesting because sometimes that can get confusing. On the Nikon, for example, if I'm recording and I hit that button, I'm going to take a photo. But with this, you just hit a little start-stop button that's incorporated into the switch that goes video and photography, which is for seamless cuts, and honestly, I could just see it working out really well as someone who also edits videos. A really cool thing that I've been messing around with is the level that the camera provides, making sure that you're level with the horizon. It's built in and works really well. Memory in this camera takes an SD card and a CF slot, which is continuous. Once one fills up, it will just go to the next if you're recording long videos, which is really helpful because I would assume with a system like that, you would have to manually switch between SD and CF card, but the camera does that for you, which I find incredibly nice. Also, it looks beautiful. It's positioned nice, it looks well designed, it makes sense. This camera just makes sense. It's very user-friendly. This camera is fast, mean, and more than powerful enough for any photographer. It might be a little bit confusing because of all the setting options that you get if you're just starting out in photography, and maybe I would recommend something different, but if you really are dedicated to learning something, this camera is great for you. I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 stars because of the menu select. It is weird enough to the point where I would deduct it a star, because 5 out of 5 means perfect, and this camera's not perfect, but it's pretty damn nice. I'd like to thank you for sticking around for my camera review. I put a lot of work into this video, so if you made it this far, just a little like, a subscribe, comment. My name is Gideon, I'm the host. I really appreciate y'all turning in. Thank you.